right, everybody, we're going to call the September 14th regular meeting of the Downtown Development Association to order. If everybody would like to join with me in citing the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think next time I'm going to have Alexa repeat it for us, and we just stay silent.
Right, there you go.
Okay, Lisa, you want to do a roll call?
Yes. Tar? Humphreys? Malzahn?
Here.
Brandt?
Here.
Rose?
Here.
Hayes?
Here.
Poznansky?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Do we have anybody on for public forum?
Yep, no public that I can see that have joined the meeting.
Okay. Then I move on for an approval of this evening's agenda. Lisa, could you do a roll call on that, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Malzahn?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can I have a motion for the approval of the August 10th minutes, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Support, Poznansky.
Roll call, Lisa, please.
Brandt?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Malzahn?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I need some guidance on the treasurer's report. Do we know if she's going to log on later or?
I think this might be Greg Tarr that's just joining in now. It's just coming in as a guest, so as soon as he logs in, it might be him. I don't know.
Okay.
It is. It's Greg.
But these are the okay. Kelly, up on the screen right now are the bills that I thought are in the packet.
They are in the packet, yes.
I can make a motion to approve the bills as submitted by Carol Humphreys
Okay.
in the amount of, what is this, $14,656.06.
Ellie, I believe, or excuse me, Christine, I believe it's the 8,561.82.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Poznansky, support.
Roll call, Lisa, please.
Malzahn?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Tar?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now, I'm not familiar enough with the budget to walk you guys through the profit loss actual. Do you want to just move this down and see if she calls in or table this?
Yeah, I don't, we can wait and get her full treasurer's report at next month's meeting as long as we've approved the bills. So everybody has the documentation of the two previous slides I've just shared, so.
Right. There are some questions I had on the actual profit and loss, so I guess we'll wait until we have Carol actually on the meeting with us then, or at the meeting. Okay. That takes us to the DDA director's report. Lisa?
well. Did all the normal office work, updated the website, added the agenda, the approved minutes, responded to any emails that we had, did some checking for some Christmas lights. We did have a Christmas light subcommittee meeting. It was Megan, Carl, Matt and Lisa Jarosh. We did meet at Cold Frame Farms. There was a discussion, about the updates based on some changes based upon what we originally met about in February due to COVID. We obviously had to change some things up. Just what we're talking about, what we'd like to do is going to need to be done over a period of years. It's not a 1-year type of plan. We are looking to get some consistency with the decorations in each building. We did do a letter. I'd like to thank Megan for writing the letter. We did do a letter. Carl delivered many of the letters. I delivered some of the letters. There are still some that need to go out. There are still some people that I have not heard back from, and I believe Carl has the same. He's had the same type of response. He's talked to a lot. He hasn't gotten some response for some. There are a lot of people that are really interested in it and seem to be kind of excited about it. I did look at lighting options for many of the different suppliers. We did, in your packet, you did see the two that we looked at that Megan got the quote on, and thank you for getting that quote, Megan. We got the quote on that, and that's part of the first year, what we would like to see done. I did check on some lighting prices for the light strands to do some of the Christmas trees like Carl did on his building last year. I'm excited to say that like the Masonic Temple is, they would like to see one of the trees done on their building. Old World Nouveau, Paramount gave Carl the okay for his building on the corner. We would like to talk to Mr. Parker about the side of his building, the MJC building, and putting one there. To explain to the people, that the DDA would own those lights. We would have them installed, but we would ask them to supply the electricity. It's going to be LED lights, so they would be not quite, not terribly expensive. Carol and I, John and Julie Rose met about the fall events and what we could do. And we discussed a lot of different things, but it really comes down to the governor's orders. Can social distancing be maintained? And what, how does the board feel? Do we want to try and, do a family event? Do we want to try and do an event with just adults and, maybe section pieces in the park? There's just so many questions right now that nobody has any answers to. And then I put the website, I talked to Kelly, and we put the website on the agenda because our email, or our website host, obviously he's very busy and he just doesn't have time to respond. I've asked at least 3 times to get Kelly an email. I've asked 3 times to get John an email. I still haven't received any responses from him. The last response I got from him was a few months ago. He said he doesn't charge for this, and I said, I need these emails. We need the address updated on the website, which is something that I cannot do. I don't have access to do that. That's one of the spots that I cannot access. I asked him to send us an invoice, and I still have not heard anything from him. So we really need to talk about a new website. I don't feel it needs to be anything fancy, but it needs to be something where somebody can go to and something that's easily changed by myself and another board member so that things can be updated and we can get email addresses when we need them. So, but that's all I've got for right now.
Lisa, I had mentioned board binders, and I think this is a project that I would like handed out by the January meeting. So if you could look at getting that put together for everybody, I think that would be valuable.
Yeah, I have been working on those. I've got to get some binders. Some of the binders that we have here are a little old, so I'm just trying to find the trying to find, the 50% off ones for the school kids. And I'm working on those pages, getting them put together, and I will have them ready for you before January.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa?
Yes, Paul, just Bill.
Bill, I received a text from 586-381-8329 with a picture of Carl's building, and it said, hey, would you be willing to put a tree like this in the south side of your building along that alley? And I responded, we are going to put at least one there, and I got a thumbs up back. So somebody on the
That
committee...
was me. That's my number, Bill. Megan.
Okay, I didn't know that. So yes, I had no idea that the DDA was going to participate in paying for the lights, but we were planning on putting a couple of them up there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions,
Okay.
if I could. I know you went to the Planning Commission meeting, and I also know that the DDA did not get an advisory that something that's marginally the most important thing that's happened in downtown in 10 years was being discussed that night, which is the special land use. And I guess this comes under intergovernmental communications. I know you're in the Village Hall every Friday. And I guess I'm curious as to A, why there's no report on that tonight, and B, why the board wasn't advised of it.
Hang on one second, I'm writing.
I guess this comes under intergovernmental communications. There's perhaps Madam Chairman can answer some questions. Do we ever get a report on when they're doing environmental testing in the village, in the downtown area?
You only get notified of such occurrences if you're within X amount of perimeter. So
No, environmental. I mean, it was done on private land by private people. Across from the Village Hall, they spent 2 days
right.
boring that parking lot, looking for, they finally figured out.
You would only get notification if it was in the municipal or public areas, like we did over in the municipal lot in front of Buscemi's. There's a company that's doing boring samples for that plume that was underneath the old BP gas station. So in that reference, the village council got notified because we had to approve the right-of-way permit, but not the DDA wouldn't be notified.
So the village itself doesn't get notification if someone is doing testing and they find out there's something that perhaps is
No, the village did. We were notified that they're doing that.
You obviously had to see them out there doing the testing.
Correct, yep.
I mean, I'm talking about at Locks. They were
Right,
there for 2 days, and
yes.
they finally got around to testing where the tank was, and I wondered, did we ever get a report on that?
No. They said they would still be doing testing. They said it would take 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm not sure that it's completed, to be perfectly honest with you.
Okay. So Lisa, I had a couple of questions, and you haven't answered them.
Okay, I'm writing. Well, I believe in the last, and Christine, please, if you could refresh my memory if I'm wrong. I do believe that Christine said that, the DDA, yes, they're an entity of the village, but you can make comment, but the DDA doesn't hold any more weight than a resident within 300 feet that was notified of that special land use. As for me discussing the special land use, I am a member of the Planning Commission. It is not, I as a member of the Planning Commission, under the law, am not allowed to discuss that with anyone other than the board members and people who are directly involved with that. It's not, as a Planning Commission member, I can't come back to you or to another person in the village and say, this is what's going on. That is not my job as a Planning Commission member, and that's not my role as a Planning Commission member to discuss that with you, because my decision.
I didn't ask you to. I just asked you to give a report.
Cannot be altered by by any,
Lisa, I didn't ask that. I just asked why you didn't give a report on it, that whether you attend as a private citizen or as a member of the planning commission, you're also the DDA director.
well, to be honest with you, I knew that there was a number of the board members on the meeting that night, and I really didn't think about putting it on the agenda.
Okay, Madam President, will we be advised when things like this, can't there be some mechanism in which the other village agencies or boards or whatever say, hey, this is going to be really important. It's about the downtown area. Otherwise, we really are nothing but the Romeo Flower Committee. I mean, this is absurd that unless you get and you have a property within 300 feet, and obviously I did, and I was there and I supported it. But the other people on the board would not have gotten those type of notices. I think it's totally absurd.
Quite a few of us got that notice.
Pardon?
Quite a few of us got that notice.
I believe there's only 2 of you that did not get that notice.
I got one notice for my 119 building. I did not get other notices for the other 2 buildings.
I did.
I did not, Kelly. Period.
I don't recall getting one either. This is Greg. And I agree with what Bill's saying. There needs to be just a purposeful communication. And I agree. Otherwise, we are the Flower Committee. And, you know, we're here to make some impact. And that is the heart of the downtown, what these folks want to do in these buildings. We need to be advocates and helping and, you know, knowing what's going on. There shouldn't be any secretiveness about it at all.
It wasn't secret, Greg. It was just there was no notice given to the DDA board to see if we wanted to make a comment about it. And essentially the same thing is going to happen with the Locks Cleaners if it goes ahead with a restaurant. It's going to make a massive impact in that whole quadrant. Mm-hmm. Now, whether you know that they're and to have a planning commission meet without us having any impact, really, we're the Flower Committee.
Well, I take exception to that because at last month's meeting, we did talk about proposed uses in our central business district. I suggested that while the master plan is being reviewed and rewritten under our planner, Mr. Casson, that any impact, any input, any recommendations that this body wanted to consider should have been submitted to the Planning Commission for their purpose. If you're going to look at changing the uses allowed in our central business district, that's where the recommendation of the DDA would come into play and working in conjunction with the Planning Commission. But the DDA as a board is not purposed to make recommendations to other bodies other than proposed joint projects, excuse me.
There is no other board in the entire village which has a singular purpose to look at that small portion of the village. I mean, we're talking about what, 40, 50 acres downtown? That's it. That's the central business district. That's what we're supposed to be paying attention to. That's what we're supposed to be helping develop. Or redeveloped. And it's absurd that our input as a board is simply not being sought. The only reason we're having these meetings is to discuss that 40-acre area. That's it. It's the sum total of our purpose. Mm-hmm. Now, if you listen to the Planning Commission chairman, he used the word archaic in referring to that list of land uses. It would be instructive and interesting for the people who weren't there to go back and have that meeting played to them to listen to what the Planning Commission members did say, which with one single vote, they all said, gee, let's have the special land use.
Well, it was 8 votes on the 8 criteria of which that special land use application had to meet the minimum requirements. So there was a significant amount of work that the Planning Commission undertook. Overall, yes, approving the special land use. But unfortunately, the special land use, the ordinance that regulates that is somewhat lacking and how the criteria is met. So the village offices could deny the zoning compliance application, which is what I did. and our legal counsel agreed with that decision, but it's a different level of criteria for a special land use. Therefore, that's how the process works. You come here, you get a yes, you get a no. You have an option, which is going before the Planning Commission for a special land use application, and that process was completed. When the Planning Commission, a different board that takes a look at that, measured the criteria, they had no alternative within the scope of law but to approve it. They could have denied it, but it would have risked litigation, because we know that in a court of law, the rules are somewhat more weighty.
Commissioner Smiles was the only person who cast a single vote against that, and that was on one of those 8 motions against approving it, period.
Correct.
Every other commissioner and all the rest of the votes were, yes, let's do it. But my point is, you're saying that what the DDA thinks about this has absolutely no impact and we shouldn't be responding as a group? I mean, we could do nothing more than send an informal letter saying that we took an informal vote and this is what we think. I mean, for God's sakes, it really is the Flower Committee if we have no input on these matters.
And again, I agree with what Bill's saying. We could lobby in different ways. And I have to drop off the call in a minute, but real fast, I sort of had the same thing about the fascia of the hardware store that went in. And again, I have no problem with it, but I would have liked to see people work with them and develop that so it fits better maybe down there. The next thing I think about is a party store right on my strip. What's going to happen to that? Can we communicate with the owner? Are we trying to lobby someone to come in there? I don't know what, Lisa, you can do to help us to, find out what's going on. I mean, we got a chance to influence that nice little area there and keep it going. And Bill, I hear what you're saying. I agree. I think we need to be lobbying, even if it's informal lobbying, because we are the DDA. I mean, we were voted to help develop that 40-acre piece and make it look sharp and make it be desirable. I've got some sidewalk comments if anybody cares. Otherwise, I have to drop off, and I apologize for that.
Is there anything happening, or maybe this is under unfinished business, on the crosswalks?
That's
that's what I want to talk about for a minute.
That's a subcommittee report in the body of this agenda we're looking at.
Got it. Okay.
So we need to take I need a motion to approve the director's report.
I don't think we don't have to approve it.
You don't have to approve it.
But I did have a quick question on that, though, is as far as the timeline goes, like with what Bill's saying, is there even time from the point that that's going to planning that we would even have an opportunity to make that meet and make that formal or informal decision or recommendation by the board? Is there even enough time from the point of when that meeting's scheduled by planning to when we could meet and make an informed recommendation?
It depends, Zach, to answer your question, it depends on when they're submitting their application. By our village regulations here, it's 25 days from the time that they submit an application until it can actually be heard. So if it's not submitted within 25 days of the meeting date, then it's pushed to the next meeting date. But in theory, it would be a minimum of 25 days,
so
which may or may not fall into your regular meeting schedule.
So why can't we have a special meeting just to discuss it when these things come up?
We may not have to with that timeline, though. We may be able to still fit it in, and if at that point, maybe if there's something that is going in front of planning that's going to be pertaining to the CBD, can we just make sure it falls on the agenda so that we know we can open it for discussion? And that it's,
I just don't understand how this board of business owners could look at the zoning laws that are actually applicable to the process that the commissioners are undertaking without you all having the proper training in zoning compliance and working with the planner, how you would be educated enough to understand what that criteria is that they have to meet. Because planning commissioners aren't allowed by law to vote on their personal feelings, right? They can't say, I don't like it, so I'm going to vote no on it, right? They have specific rules that they have to follow. They have an education and a training process that they go to. Hopefully, not everybody has attended those classes, but they are offered in the hopes that everybody will attend it to understand how the rule of law is applied to zoning and planning.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna, because I was on planning prior to the DDA, and I don't remember ever going through that process of any sort of training. It was, here's your binder, see at the next meeting kind of deal. So but it wouldn't necessarily be from a legal standpoint, because we're not making this decision from a legal perspective. We're making it from what we feel is best for the CBD, I guess. And the Planning Commission doesn't have to take it under advisement, but at least the position is made and it's on record, I guess.
That's exactly right. And what we're talking about there is just giving some guidance, some input, some thoughts. And a real simple example would be when I redid the front of my building, I chose to use AZAC, a composite material. It cost me 4 times as much, versus just putting pine back on there and painting it and letting it run for another decade. The point is, there's a million different ways to do the same thing, and they're all legal and they're all right, maybe, but we would just be more in a position, just like the facade of the hardware. I hate to keep going back to that. It's perfectly fine the way it is, but it could have been great. And maybe with somebody just guiding and pushing a little bit and suggesting, somebody, yeah, that makes sense, I'll do that. Instead of putting a chrome railing, I'll put a wrought iron so it matches the downtown feel. Those are the types of things I think Bill is sort of talking about. Let's be involved. Let's give some guidance, some input, and let the others hash it out, the legalities of it. But, we're just trying to make it work and help them.
I don't think that's our position as the DDA to guide them in, I would like everybody to do the front of their building just beautifully, but I think ours, we can either support what they're bringing to town or we can reject it. I think it's the planning.
Or guide them a little bit. We can also make suggestions. There's nothing wrong with that if it's in the right spirit of, hey, these are some things you might want to think about. Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Okay.
Wouldn't
they can forget it and walk away.
Role in doing this? Wouldn't
Say
they be
again?
forced with that guidance, the HDC?
The HDC? Well, yeah, everybody. Why not?
Well,
we're trying to maintain the integrity of these buildings.
I get that.
So actually the DDA, we had the facade grant program. So not only would it be, so like what Greg's talking about, not only could we have guidelines, but then we're also going to help you pay for it in form of a grant.
Right.
That's what we did with the sign grant, where if it was in keeping with the look and the feel of what the DDA deemed appropriate for the look we wanted for the CBD, then not only would we guide you, but we'd also, you get a break on it. It was a $500 sign grant. And I think we've done about 4 of those, at least in my time. And I know it's been a while since we did the facade thing, and I don't even think we budgeted for it in a while, but that's something we can bring back. Those things are in place. They just need to be kind of kickstarted again.
If I may comment, just look at the top of your screen, right in the middle, what the purpose of our DDA is here. The last sentence is to authorize the creation and implementation of development plans in the district and promote economic growth. I think this is what we're all saying right now. And that's what our purpose is.
So to Bill's question,
Yeah.
I think we should be informed of things that are coming before the Planning Commission. And as a group, we're not going to tell them how to structure their project, but give our yay or nay to this.
That's all I was suggesting, Kelly.
Okay.
The undertone that I'm picking up on is exactly what Megan said. We're kind of all in agreement on this. What I'm gathering, being new to this, is are we able to be proactive or reactive? And the way it sounds, with the little bit that I've heard and in just a couple months that I've been here, we're very reactive, and we get information later and we react on what we want to do, how we want to spend money, or plan, ideas we have almost after the fact. I don't know the trigger. I don't have an answer to try to be a little more proactive, but if I pick up on it right, it sounds like that's what Mr. Parker is trying to get at, is how can we, I don't know what it is, but how can we be a little bit more proactive to some of these things that affect.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's a point for future discussion. The way it sounds is maybe we've all got some ideas on what the DDA is and how we are able to better receive information, give our input to the powers that be that then make the final decision.
But I go back to the master plan, and that's what the planning commission is following, what the ordinances and the master plan say should happen in that. So the creation, the updating of that master plan every 5 years is where that input should be. Because now the planning commission, for instance, is undertaking form-based zoning, which is what they would like. The chairman is proposing form-based zoning for our central business district, which is great on its face value. But I guess you would have to, as a body, then understand what form-based zoning is and make the recommendation of how the central business district handles those situations.
Going back to what John said too, it just kind of clicks with me that, I think we're overdue for a goals and objectives meeting, because I don't think we've had that since the majority of the board, or almost a majority of the board has been, since they're new. I don't think we've done that, and it usually happens around this time, but it's one of those things where we need to physically meet and not do it via Zoom, at least in my opinion. But that would be something to put on our radar and hopefully schedule for the fall at some point, because I think it's long overdue.
I agree, Zach. And having only come in
Agreed.
For the last 3 meetings, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing. So
Yeah, I agree exactly. There's a lot of this, and then we hear about it and we discuss it briefly, and then it's another 30 days before we talk about it again. So it's never going to happen that way. So again, not having an answer, but I think it sounds like what Zach's talking about is some way to agree and refine maybe some of our objectives a little bit more often.
all right, I will.
Christine, or Kelly, I'll be glad to go through the sidewalk stuff now if you want me to. Otherwise, I'll have to drop, and Christine can obviously fill you in on it. She was in on all of it as well.
All right, Greg, we'll drop that down to the crosswalk committee. Go ahead.
Well, it is next, I think.
Well, no, we didn't talk about fall decorations, but go ahead.
My bad. Okay. So real fast, Christine, stop me where you wish or interject, but Christine brought in the engineering firm. We did a walk around the town. When I left it, he was working on putting together some specs, some ideas, some pricing on 4 different cross areas, south end, north end, east, west, maybe interface with the superintendent a bit to get Todd's thoughts on for crossing, or, where the students may be crossing more this year and next year and whatever else, to try to take that into account. But I believe right now we're just still kind of waiting for his ideas and quasi information, so we could get some maybe specific pricing and get it out, maybe some general quotes to get an idea. We looked at everything from little flimsy things that might be put in the crossway to say, hey, yield for pedestrian, to the grandiose ideas of doing a kind of a light over the road with a push button and, everything else. So I think everything's on the table. We are moving, and it was a productive meeting. I appreciate Christine bringing the fellow out. Have we heard back from him at all, Christine?
Yeah, Greg, you're on the phone, so you can't really see what I'm sharing on my screen right now. I did get his report today, and so I'll go into detail with what we're sort of looking at and proposing, as well as some pretty good hard cost estimates.
Okay,
So,
I'm going to jump. I'll get back with you, Christine, later on that. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg.
Excuse me, Kelly, would you like a proposal to approve the director's report? I don't think we did that, which
They said I didn't have
No need to.
I'll propose to approve the director's report.
We don't need to take that vote, John.
It,
Okay, Christine, so this is what you received today from the company. Do you want to go through it?
I can, sure. So as Greg said, we originally met, Lisa had contacted Roe just to, I think, update the logo on the old streetscape stuff that the DDA looked at, their proposal. Gosh, I don't know, what was that, from 2004 or something like that. And I honestly had forgotten that I was on the DDA, not that we looked at that project, but who the engineering firm was that helped us do that scope of work. And it was a very ambitious project at the time, a whole streetscape for our downtown, which included angle parking versus parallel parking, and looked at meters and lots of bump outs and crosswalks and new sidewalks. And I think it was, if I can recall, like $4 million. And so obviously that never came to fruition. But so when the gentleman from Roe came out, I said, hey, all right, if I seriously want to consider this as a joint project, again, between the Village Council and the DDA, who do I contact? So he put me in touch with Paul O'Meara, who's the project manager with Roe Professional Services. The gentleman that came out the first time was just one of the engineers. So I've been working with Paul O'Meara. Him and I, again, walked with Greg. John was not able to make that meeting, but we looked at the different quadrants and intersections that we thought were the most traversed in the village. So what we were really looking to do was put mid-block crossings or pedestrian crossings at some of our other walkways that was not only along Van Dyke, but also along St. Clair Street. Because as you know, we only have one crosswalk, which is at the main light in town. So coupled with that project, I also inquired about crosswalks and timing of lights for our middle school students that are now trying to traverse to the old high school, the new middle school. But we decided that we were going to just sort of treat that as a separate project. So I actually have a meeting with Todd Robinson and the Road Commission to take a look at that project later on in this week. But Paul, I authorized an expenditure of about $1,900 for him to put together this presentation that you're seeing that I'm sharing on the slide. And I'll email you that report to everybody's inbox. I just received it this afternoon. And so I just quickly threw it in this slide presentation. So what we talked about was a crosswalk at Washington Street in front of Greg Tarr's across to Old World Nouveau. Then we talked about a bump out and a crosswalk at Lafayette Speedway across to where Zach's building is. We looked at leaving the intersection as it is, with then another crosswalk at Newberry and a crosswalk at Church Street, getting over to the library, and then also crosswalks at Bailey Street and Rawls, so on St. Clair. Those were the 6 areas that we sort of took a look at. Originally, the thought process was to put in the concrete, in the asphalt, some sort of marking or sign system that would alert people when they got to the Church and Newberry entrance into town. I'm sorry, Church and Washington Street, Greg Tarr and the library area. To say, hey, you're coming into something different, right? You might want to slow down. There might be people involved. And then at the next intersection, which would have been Lafayette and Newberry, some sort of bump out, a curb bump out, so that people who may not be as mobile would have a more safe spot to land so that they could view through traffic and not have to traverse 3 lanes plus 2 lanes of parking to get to the other side of the street. And then the same thing at Washington, at Bailey and at Rawls, not bump out. So he took a look at that scope. He didn't think that putting stuff in the asphalt was probably going to fly with the Road Commission. So I can read through the scope of work if you want me to. Let me just go back to in a nutshell, before I go back and I'll read his bullet points, that again, I'll email you this report to you. There's grant money out there, which is why we're even talking about this, because we all know our budgets are pretty tight. But there's a significant amount of money through SEMCOG and TAP grants for pedestrian crossings. There's also grant money for safe routes to school, which is what I'm going to talk about on Thursday with the superintendent of the schools. But it would cost, for this scope of work that we're talking, it would, let me go back a couple of pages here. One more. Okay. So construction cost, he anticipates about $312,000. There's a local match, 35% match for the local municipality of $109,000. We would qualify for about $202,000 in grants to that. And the village or the municipality would still be responsible for paying for the planning, design, and administration of that. So the total village responsibility to take on this project would be about $181,000, just under, give or take. So it's a significant investment, but we're getting a pretty big bang for our buck, especially capturing $200,000 in grants. But the timing is a concern, because the grant application has to be submitted by fairly early in October. I believe it's the 14th of October is the deadline. And Paul O'Meara from Rowe will charge a fee and help complete that grant application if we decide we want him to move this forward. But tonight, I just wanted to at least, have everybody understand the scope of the project, and then seriously take a look at our budget. We may need to call a special meeting, because I don't anticipate you all voting on this tonight. This is a lot to consider, but we just got the information. We know we talked about mid-block crossings, and a couple of our business owners, Greg and John Rose, are in agreement that this is probably a priority for public safety. So I thought it was worth at least getting some figures here. So if I could just go back then, and I'll read you some of the bullet points that are included in this presentation. So accessible sidewalk ramps compliant with the American with Disabilities Act must be installed adjacent to each enhanced crosswalk. So those are the red plates that you see in each one of those drawings. They're bumpy. We have very few intersections in the village right now that are ADA compliant. The new ones that they put on the east side of the four corners that you have by the BP and you have by the photography studio, those have ADA ramps, but pretty much all the other crossings do not. So all of this crosswalk and curb and gutter would include bringing it into compliance with the American Disabilities Act. He's suggesting 8-foot wide EnduraBlend crosswalks. That's the red painted area that you see in those. EnduraBlend is a polymer cement surface material. It's only 1/4 of an inch thick, but gives the appearance of brick pavement. EnduraBlend has been installed in many locations throughout the United States and elsewhere. It has been proven to be very durable, even in areas with difficult winters. An 8-inch wide white line to frame the EnduraBlend is recommended to help with driver visibility. The white line material used in the cost estimate will need to be replaced every 3 to 4 years to maintain its high visibility. Okay, given the 3-lane road configuration of these locations and the need to allow turns, installing signs in the middle of the street is not practical and not allowed by the county. 2-faced crosswalk marker signs are proposed. I can hop over to that slide. Oops, which is this slide here, yield for, oh, I think I went one too far, sorry. One too far, go back. Yes, so you've got the pedestrian, the little, diamond-shaped walking dude with an arrow pointing to the crosswalk, or the yield to pedestrians here, is what he's proposed on each side of the road at each crosswalk, other than at the signalized intersection, which would be at the main 4 corners. That helps alert drivers to the possible presence of pedestrian, and see the pictures that are attached. The brick paver concept installed throughout downtown is 20 years old. Recent work done in the downtown area removed but did not replace this older style. The sidewalk removal and replacement areas shown do not reflect the extra costs that would be required to try and match the brick pattern concepts from the past. Note that the ADA ramp standards discourage the use of rough textures such as brick in the area of the ramp itself, so that the detachable plates must be installed now can be clearly distinguished by the visually impaired. Okay, accessible ramp standard, since these intersections were constructed, in most cases, the ramps must be lowered and flattened, meaning that sidewalks must be removed further back to gradually blend the slope down to the ramp area. On those corners where the buildings are not built up to the property lines, grading easements from property owners will usually be required to transition private property down to the new sidewalk grade. So obviously they're going to have to move some of our current sidewalks to get the grade right, again, to be ADA compliant. Both Main Street and St. Clair Street are under the jurisdiction of the Macomb County Department of Roads. Any proposals are subject to review and approval by that agency. Given the short time frame of this study, no plans have been submitted to the county for review or input. However, I did meet with them last fall regarding some other issues, but asked about this project, and they said they weren't opposed, and just to bring them our ideas. We just needed to let them know what we wanted to do, and then they would consider that. Not that they're going to pay for it, but they will consider it. So Paul says that everything in this design will meet the standards of MDOT. So the Road Commission Transportation, their design requirements are considered in this proposal. So that should make it easier to sell them. The local distributor feels that the material will last as long as the pavement it has been installed on, meaning that when it's time to resurface or repair the road, the material will have to be removed as well. With that in mind, the life expectancy of the existing pavement should be considered. Working on a PACER study. We all know that our roads aren't that good, but those are county maintained roads. So I guess they would have some input on when they would anticipate sort of a grind and overlay, or if they're just going to sort of fill and, put in some coal patch in the potholes as they develop. We'll have to see what they say. EnduraBlend is a proprietary material only available through one authorized contractor for this region of the country. I've asked them for cost estimates given the parameters of this job. Have not received information as of this writing. The price of the material may fluctuate either up or down given future market conditions. I guess that sort of goes with a lot of things. The price quotes are using 20 market conditions. It is recommended that if this work is planned for construction in 2022 or 2023, that additional funds be budgeted for inflation. Although he thinks that this project, if we approved it now and applied for the TAP grant, it could be completed in spring or summer of 2021 would be the time frame. Some notes for some specific locations. Main Street in St. Clair. Given this is the central intersection of the business district, Rowe recommends that the enhanced crosswalk treatment be installed on all 4 legs. You can try and go back to that slide. I think it's this one here. Yes, okay. While ramps exist on the west side of the intersection, they are in poor condition. New accessible ramps are recommended at each of the west corners only, while the eastern ones can remain as is. That's because the county improved that intersection a couple of years ago when they put the new stoplight in town. And so that's why those are in much better shape with the ADA ramps already installed there. At Main Street in Newberry, curb extensions and bump outs have been included in the estimate for these locations. If the village obtains a transportation alternative program, that's a TAP grant, federal requirements will apply. These requirements include compliance with the State Historic Preservation Office. Given the high grade of the front door to the building at the southwest corner of the intersection compared to the street, it will be challenging to meet ADA acceptability standards while not disrupting the historical integrity of this building. So that's going to be a problem, as you can see on the Main and Newberry slide coming out of the Masonic Temple, right? There's weird grades there with 2 tiered steps going from the street to the one sidewalk, then to the second sidewalk, and then more steps getting into each one of the individual businesses. So that may be an issue. Let's see. While constructing the bump out will assist in this effort by providing more space for sidewalk ramps, some type of raised planter box with perennials would likely be needed in the area where the sidewalk step currently exists. The planter would allow for a higher sidewalk near the front door while still incorporating steps to the front door, as well as much lower sidewalk on the street side to access the ramps. A sloped sidewalk would need to be installed from the front door of the building toward northward toward Newberry. On the southeast corner, grading is not an issue. However, installing the new ramp near the existing tree will likely require the removal of the existing tree grate and brick pattern, and instead incorporating a mulched landscape bed around the tree to allow the area to slope down to the adjacent ramp. The village should anticipate that providing a design that both meets the objectives of the village board while meeting ADA, SHPO, that's the, what was that acronym for? Anybody paying attention to what I was saying? I don't know, I'll have to look at it. And local building code. It'll be challenging. It'll be challenging to get everybody to be on board with this, but he thinks we can do it. On Main and Washington Street, so down the other end, similar to the one noted above, the existing tree grate for the tree located on the northeast corner will have to be removed and not replaced. It appears that the tree is getting too large for the existing grate, and a mulch bed will be required to blend the grade of the tree into the new lowered ADA ramp. All right, then it just sort of breaks off at that point and goes into the application process, which is this page right here that gives you the application cost, the cost breakdown, the alternatives, the cost of if we were going to do just 1 or 2 of these areas instead of the whole scope of project, is also down at the bottom of that page. And then you go into the full-on breakdown, let's see, of every intersection, what's going to be done, and then how much it's going to cost. So there you have it. Plain and simple, right? Piece of cake.
Would this be a combined project with the Village of Romeo?
That's what I would anticipate. I mean, we have some money in our streets, our local streets. We have some money in our beautification, and we have some money in our, well, we put it in our rainy day fund per se, which is money that wasn't spent from previous years, prior year fund balance, which our accountant hates that term, but that's what we still call it. We had earmarked some of that money for a different TAP grant that I applied, which would have been to pave Croswell Street, but they denied that application. There was $8 million worth of applicants, and they only had like $3 million to spend. So we didn't make the cut on that one. We can always reapply. Same thing goes with this. If we apply for the grants, there's no guarantee that we're going to be awarded the $202,000, but yeah, I think you have to at least apply, and, you know, to be told yes or no, because $202,000 is a significant amount of, you know, of grant funding to help pay for this sort of project.
Yeah, I don't think it's nearly as feasible without it.
Right.
Now, and what did you say the initial cost for him to submit the application? Because he would do it for a fee.
Yes. Initially, it was $3,800. Which I told him that included both this proposal that you're seeing tonight and the application. And I said, well, that's above my pay grade to authorize. So break that down for me. Give me the cost of what it would take to get the proposal in order so that I could get something before you, and then separate what the HAP grant application would be. So I approved $1,900. So that means the other one would probably be about another $11.
So is that $1,100 something that the DDA would be paying for? if we decide to move forward, or because it sounds like we only have a month to decide if we want to even
Right.
submit this.
No, I think what I would do is probably put this in front of Village Council to approve at our meeting next Monday. But I certainly wouldn't want to put it through and ask Village Council to vote on something when it would be a joint project without at least getting some input from the DDA board. I mean, I don't know. Without Carol here on the meeting, it's a little more difficult for us to take a look and to know what do we have in the bank, and what portion of that would you be willing to put on a joint project?
I mean, would that be something then? Because I mean, if you just because you received the grant doesn't necessarily mean you have to do the project, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So I mean, if the village decides to spend the other $1,100 and submit it, I mean, I think the DDA would be open to doing it as a joint venture. We're doing the LEDs for this year, correct? So I mean, it would be based on, obviously if you guys started in 2021, I don't know where that stands with the budget, how much of that would be, like, what's the dollar amount for the shared project?
About 181,000 is what the village's responsibility would be.
No. Yeah, I know. I'm asking for the LEDs for this year. What was that project? What was the amount for that project?
45.
45 total, or 45 the DDA's?
That was 45 was the DDA's portion from what I remember.
Okay.
I agree, Lisa. That's what I recall also.
So I mean, at that point, if the village decides to spend that $1,100 and you guys come to us with this as a joint project, I think we can, without knowing, dollar amounts from our standpoint, what's going to be asked of us, I think we can at least say that we're open to pursuing this because it's been talked about for so long at our at the board level.
But it would have to be probably a significant cost sharing. I'm not talking 20,000, right?
Sure.
I'm still waiting to hear back from DTE, although he said that 2020 install on the light upgrades wouldn't happen until 2021. So I can get with him to find out what the status of that project, if we still want to move that forward, or if we think that we want to hold on that project, if this is more of a priority. And again, taking a look at what do you have in the bank account, but I would think sort of this would be a 50-50 split.
So you're talking 90,000 from the DDA side then?
Uh-huh.
Is that grant all or nothing? Do you get 200,000 or could they give you 50,000?
I don't know, honestly, what their criteria is for how much money they're actually allocated and how it's weighted. I don't know the application process.
So we could all go in on it planning on $181,000, but it could end up being more if they gave us less money, right?
In theory, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then you could cut the scope of your project because we have cost alternative for, maybe we don't do all 4 on Main Street and we just do 2 on Main Street. And then we still do the 2 on St. Clair. I mean, I suppose you could take a look at the project and where you could cost save or cut it back there.
So if I'm reading our budget correctly, and I know Carol's not here to ask questions, but it looks as though we have about almost 120,000 in our blueprint project section of the budget. Am I reading that correctly?
That's my understanding as well, Zach. Yes. Okay.
And I don't see anything on here, but she has 2,000 budgeted for benches, but shows that we didn't spend anything on benches. Did we budget more for benches that we haven't spent yet, Megan?
Did you guys pay for those last year or this year?
That was last year.
Okay. That's what we paid for.
Correct, Lisa? It's paid.
So that 2,000 was
Yeah,
just.
the benches were completely paid for.
Okay, so she just has it in there as maybe we were gonna buy more or we budgeted.
Possibly. I really don't.
But either way, I mean, we're sitting on quite a bit of money. We just, I mean, is this a project that the DDA sees as valuable for the next, however many years, or do we want to focus on like the alley projects or
parking. Parking is something that people always bring up. Do you do parking before you do crosswalk, or do you crosswalk before you do parking? Is chicken or the egg, wherever we want to go?
If I can interject, I find it, first of all, very interesting that where we started this meeting tonight as far as what do we do, what are we responsible for, what can we and what are we allowed to do. And here's a perfect project that we're discussing. And the first comment would be, is it in fact ours to do? Is it village council to do? Is it a joint project? I certainly spoke to the project, certainly joint if ours at all. I guess my input would be that it's the big picture of this project, I think, is fantastic. I think the long-term benefits are huge. Megan's point about parking, what comes first, this is the type of thing that would, I think, need to be in place when and if there's additional parking that we figure out. So if this is something, and it's a very nice presentation, a nice quote, I think we need to get started on it. I don't know how it works with the funds. It definitely would have to do it as a joint project. But the overall framing of the CBD is sort of how I'm looking at it. And then everything inside would benefit from this sort of a framework, which are simple crosswalks, but I like the way it designates the territory, so to speak. So there's a lot here. If this is part of the DDA scope, I love the project. I think it looks.
I say take it to the village. Have the village board vote on it if they want to spend the money to take the next step and submit the application for the grant.
Madam President, was there a down and dirty alternative of just painting the crosswalks?
There is an alternative built in there, which would be just the white striping instead of applying the red Endura blend. But it's my understanding the majority of the expense is really in the curb and gutter and making this ADA. Those ADA mats are so expensive that's really where the upfront money is costing us.
I got that, but is there a down and dirty just painting the crosswalks?
As far as in the proposal?
No, and just not doing curb and gutter and just painting the streets and crosswalks. Is that what you're saying, Bill?
Yes.
I think that what Roe is suggesting is that because it's a county road, if you're going to do pedestrian crossings, you must make it ADA compliant. Okay. If you're going to do anything, you're going to have to bring it into compliance.
Yeah, I think if you start doing any sort of work there, you're opening up that can where you've got to complete it up to code.
Mm-hmm. I'm in agreement with Zach. Take it to the village council and see if you guys can get the grant, and then that's where you go from with how much money you're working with.
Right. Well, what I'll probably do is I will put it on the agenda for Monday. Since we have the DDA meeting, you have your meeting on the 5th, which is just before the grant needs to be submitted. I believe we would need a resolution from this board as well for the funding allowance, because they're looking for minutes from a meeting so that the municipality and the parties who are actually paying the bill are committed to this project. So I can certainly take it to council, see what they say. We can still put it back on our agenda for an actual formal vote on the 5th, and see what council has said and report back.
So you guys are 100% in, we would use that 80 that Zach's pointing out, and we would find 10 somewhere else, because we need to know that if we get that grant, that we are 100% going forward.
Well,
Right, I guess we'd have to make sure that Carol can answer those questions at next month meeting.
Yeah, because I don't want to spend 1,100 if this committee isn't willing to jump in with all of that money.
Well, we don't know that it's going to only be that amount either. Like Paul pointed out, I don't think if we get that full grant money that's laid out in this presentation, I don't think it's something that we could feasibly take on.
True.
But if it's not funded, if it's only funded 50% of what's out here in the grant contribution, then my opinion might change. So I can't say just because I'm supporting it now, looking at this, if we receive less, I can't say that my vote would be to move forward. But based on what we have here, if you guys get the grant, I think we can find a way to get the money, or get the rest of it funded. But it depends on how much they're offering up, though. You know, how much we get awarded for that.
Mm-hmm.
What Megan is saying is that we're not going to know that at a village council vote or DDA vote when you're voting in favor in putting a resolution of support for this project. If we're going to expend the $1,900 that I've already approved for the proposal and an additional amount to actually get the TAP grant application all situated, she wants to make sure that there is indeed board support for that expenditure.
Yeah, I get it. My thing is, you know, and I don't want to say we're you know, you don't want to chase bad money with more bad money, but I mean, if you spent $1,800 to get this drawn up, and if you're chasing after this grant, what's another $1,100 in the whole scheme of things? But I'm not a trustee. That's not my decision to make.
Right.
So are you asking this board tonight to make a decision in support of this?
No, because I don't think anybody's had this information in front of them long enough to actually, you know, consider that. So I'm going to email this proposal to all the board. Well, I get it to Lisa, and then Lisa can email it out to all the board members. And then I'm suggesting that I'm feeling fairly confident just in the conversation that we're having now to relay to Village Council that there's a significant amount of support and interest from the DDA. And if they agree on the Village Council level to move it forward, then I would put it on our agenda, the DDA's agenda for the 5th, and look for a board actual vote then.
Okay.
And is this then considered a split project? The DDA is going to be contributing, the council's going to be contributing? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Do we need a motion for this?
No, I don't think you need to take a motion because really it's just a subcommittee report at this point.
Okay. That was a big subcommittee report.
I know, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Fall event subcommittee, which I think John was part of, correct? I have a few questions. What's his name? Sean, that's been watering the flowers, came to me. And last year he had done some decorating in the pots with fall decorations. He had corn in there and stuff, and wanted to know if that was something we would be interested in having him do this year. And then the other thing that came up was the merchants trick-or-treating on Main Street. I know Christine is going to have a conversation with Clara from Parks and Rec. Is this something that we are supporting this year or not?
I did have a conversation with Clara. It was always sort of a contention, like who's in charge of this trick-or-treating? No one. It's like Tilson Street, right? It just sort of happens. And the Parks and Rec always just sort of piggybacked off the trick-or-treating in the village to plan their costume party in the park, right? They did their little kids event with cookies and cider in the park after that. So the Parks and Rec is not doing that this year. They've already determined that that social distancing is an issue and a concern in the village park. So whether there is trick-or-treating in our downtown or not, the Parks and Rec won't be having their costume contest. So then it just becomes a question of does this just happen? Anybody, it's the Saturday before Halloween. It's just historically from 11 to 1, the siren sounds, and, whoever wants to trick or treat comes to the downtown and the merchants pass out candy. So,
Last year we even closed down the streets.
yes.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. I feel like the kids have to wear masks and costumes. It's probably the best time for letting the little kids out.
Yeah, I feel it's a real difficult one. I just heard for the first time that really nobody spearheads it, if I understood that correctly. It just sort of happens, which actually makes it even a little more concerning to me from what I hear. I'm sure you guys can all appreciate what are we saying here, and it's also hard because it's another month and a half away or so. Who knows where we're going to be? Hopefully in a much better state, and it won't be an issue at all. But if I was asked right now, I'd have trouble with it as far as out in front of my business, encouraging a crowd. That's kind of what I've been working on the last 6-8 months. It's been very difficult. So that's my input at this moment. That may change, obviously, in another 30 days. Hopefully it will.
I mean, my perspective, I kind of agree with John on that. So you combine the, you think about the places like the restaurants that are already having to spread people out. They're spread thin on help. There's a lot of, there's a cost associated with this for sure. But like with it not being organized, nobody's really pushed it in the past and people just show up. So you're not going to be able to avoid people showing up in costumes trick-or-treating. You know what I mean? They will be there. But at that point, I guess I would just say it's up to every individual business, whether you want to pass out candy or not, but maybe we're not encouraging it, and we're maybe not saying anything about it because we haven't been the one in the past to get the message out. So why would that change now? I don't know. It's hard to make a decision on these kind of things.
Other communities I've read in the papers, some of them are saying there's not going to be Halloween this year. Period. That maybe it's obviously the village council, since they have to vote to run the siren, and then this is when we're going to do trick or treating. They're going to have to make that decision on a council basis.
Well, we never have approved the actual trick or treating. I did ask them to close down the street, as Megan pointed out, and we had the fire department at one end and the police department at the other end, just to ensure no vehicular traffic in downtown, because we had thousands of kids that came and traversed the village. So that was approved on village council side, but not trick or treating per se on October 31st.
And to John's point, I came to the DDA, I don't know if you can remember, Zach, 2 or 3 years ago, and I did ask the DDA to take ownership of the downtown trick-or-treating, and the board didn't think it was a good idea at that time. So that's where we stand with that.
Yeah, I had no idea that it really wasn't I gather, an official organized event, other than the safety concerns of closing the street, which was certainly a good idea based on what I saw last year. But
I thought it was the Parks and Rec that did it, and and Clara told me no. So,
but they do promote it in their brochure typically, and they pay for the costume contest. So of course people think it's a Parks and Rec thing.
Yeah, I call up there and say, "Hey, is this happening?" And they go, "Hold on, let me call the DDA." And I go, "I am the DDA," and then we go in circles. So, yeah.
And then they call me.
Right.
Yeah, chamber.
So what's the consensus? No?
Well, I mean, it's a tough year. Absolutely very, very tough year for everything. Yeah, if you can wait a month.
Yeah, let's wait and see what another month brings us.
Okay. All right. And then I didn't hear anybody say anything about Sean's offer about doing those baskets. I have no idea what he charged you guys last year.
It's $50 a basket.
Pardon me?
It was $50 a basket.
Okay. I liked it. I thought it was very nice given the holiday. people were taking pictures out there. It was just an added, we don't want to do corn stalks.
No.
Well, at least it's just something that it's very work intensive to do corn stalks. So this was something that was easier and actually I think gave more of an impact.
Are the lights going on the poles, like the purple and orange looking things?
I don't know. Do we have a contract for that, Lisa?
We don't have a contract for that, but I mean, it's a $1,500 charge. The contractor's ready. I just need to send it out.
I think we've been planning, we usually do it. I think we should. We need, people need encouragement and to see some sort of consistent normalcy.
I agree with Megan. We can't stop doing stuff that makes the downtown look good.
Right.
Just because of what's going on right now. I think.
How many baskets are involved?
I think we did 10 last year.
So you'd need a motion to spend $500.
And then he did a bunch of hay bales, setups.
Yeah, between where the baskets weren't, between light poles, he did with the pumpkins and stuff.
I want to say there might have been one on each quadrant of those, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe
I did that ourselves. I know Bluebird did their own, and I know we did our own, and I think the office did their own. And
Yeah, there's one in front of Kehoe.
I did my own too down at the other end.
There was one by, the cafe. I think we ended up getting billed for that, the one right by our shop. But I think, like John said, a lot of those were paid for by businesses individually. And Sean, that's what Sean does. He goes around and he asks a business, do you want one in front of your place? It's going to be $50. Yeah, sure, go for it. However, whatever it costs.
Do we need a motion to spend the $500 to get the baskets
And the 15 for the lights.
and the $1,500?
So $2,000.
Yep.
Then I'd make a motion that we spend the $2,000 for the $500 for the baskets and $1,500 for the lights.
Where's that coming out of the budget? Just so we can.
Fall harvest decorations, we have 500 right there.
but the lighting is under,
Holiday lighting.
Holiday lighting's 2,500.
But does that include the winter?
well, if you look at, okay, so
We
we
have
have
5
holiday
grand
lighting.
banners that we won't be using.
Right, we won't be using the banners. Holiday lighting is 2,500, and then if you look at winter holiday greens and install,
Yeah,
she's
but-
got 12.
But we need that for Christmas.
Yeah, we need that for Christmas.
So I would say under fall harvest decorations, we have 500, and then we have 2,500 under holiday lighting, or even the 5 grand in banners. That would be where that 2 grand would come from.
Well, as long as it's in that downtown decorations in general and we have it, then I think we're okay.
I'd support Bill's motion,
To spend up to $2,000,
not
correct?
to exceed 2 grand.
Okay.
That's correct.
Not to exceed 2 grand, okay. Steven supported that, correct?
Megan did.
Megan supported it, sorry.
Okay.
Can you do a roll on that?
Yep, hang on 1 second. Parker,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Malzahn,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Rose,
yes,
Hayes,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. We already did crosswalk. The Christmas light subcommittee. But just before you guys give the report, I just have a few things that came to my attention. The letter that went out to our Main Street merchants, I thought as a subcommittee, you guys would meet and come back and give your ideas back to the board before any action was taken, because there was a lot of confusion about that letter. It didn't exactly spell out what the monies were being collected for. So that was just my 2 cents on that.
Well, truthfully, to say that we don't exactly know until the DDA, this committee votes on what we want to do. So we have an idea, but we don't have it in stone until we vote right now of what we want to do. So that's why it was a little ambiguous. I apologize for confusion.
Mm-hmm. I think in asking the merchants to help supplement, the number was big. It was from $100 to $300. At my end, some of them just can't afford that. And Lisa did go on to explain it. I guess it breaks down to how many participating merchants you guys have to come up with an exact
Correct.
amount.
And the more we have, the better the price.
Right. But what was being asked is, and I don't think the theme was really put into that letter. You know, we're trying to make a uniform theme throughout town. And so I think that's where the confusion came in. So, but Megan, if you want to go ahead, because I do like the pictures you did send.
Okay. Well, first, let's everybody pick up your phone, the text message, the Christmas tree light. I don't know if this will work at all to show this to the people. The light, the Christmas tree, just done with the lights on Carl's, Vera's. That is what we're talking about. And our idea is to have, how many more of those guys? Like 5, at least 2 in each quadrant. We didn't want them everywhere, but we liked the look of it. And then from there, what we're thinking is the second picture, our snowflakes or whatever you want to call those decorations that go up the pole. This is the absolute last year we can really duct tape those together. So we have to go forward with something else. So the idea was wreaths. Let me try this again. These wreaths on the pole. And if you can see, there's a wreath that goes over or one that goes under. And that's part of our decision is what would this board like to do? Would you like a wreath over the light or under the light? And then with the bows, would you like the 4-loop bow or the 2-loop bow? And then what we'll do as we tie in between the tree lights on the building, we'll have swags with wreaths in the same bow to kind of bring everything into cohesiveness.
My question on the underneath one, if the foundation is going to continue in the vein of doing their holiday banners, would that impede the banner?
I asked for a price to only do half, okay, so that we would have half every other pole with a wreath, and then every other pole would be able to still have a banner.
Are those wreaths lit?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So essentially my idea is that we cannot afford all of this at one time. As Lisa said earlier, this has to be step by step. So the initial idea is let's grab the bows. Well, and if you can see on that picture on the top left, that would be what it would look like for this year. So we would have the greenery wrapped around the light pole lit up, and then we would have a bow on each side. And then next year we could use all of our Christmas money or what have you to grab the wreaths because they are quite pricey. I got a quote today for the bows. If we went with the 2-loop, they would be $51 a piece, which if we buy before the end of September, we get 25% off, but you still have to pay shipping and tax, so it only really takes off so much. But I quoted out 100 bows, so 100 2-loops would be about $4,400. And if we did 100 of the 4-loops, it's $7,200.
Okay, let me ask, are the monies you're asking for the merchants, is that money that's applying to these bows, or what is that money coming?
No, this will go on our poles.
Okay, but what would the money that the merchants are putting in go toward?
The swags, we will buy live green swags and... so
you're decorating everybody's front of their building?
Yes, so swags and live green wreaths. That's why I'm saying it depends on who wants to participate and how much we need. Lisa said we could get a better deal. Obviously, the more the footage we would use.
Now, is Cold Frame willing to decorate everybody's building front?
That's kind of where the money was going to have to come into. If we couldn't afford to pay for it, to put it in, and for the product, then we were going to need help, obviously, doing that.
So I guess what's the cost of the install on each building?
I don't remember that they gave us a price. Do you remember, Lisa?
They did not give us a price. Didn't give us a price. We need to establish who is interested in doing this, and based on what Carl and I have, just verbal with many of the businesses, and again, we haven't been to all of them yet, but just counting right now, and this is just the greens portion of it. Now, the tree portion of it, like Carl said, like was done on Carl's building, I got the pricing for the lights for those, all right? When I explained the lights, the trees to the buildings, that seemed like they were suitable, Old World Nouveau would love to have one. The Masonic Temple is in for one. I know there's a couple other ones on the north side. I mean, there's a few other ones. Obviously, we have to pick the buildings.
How much are those lights to do that tree?
Those lights, if we did enough lights to do, I want to say it's seven trees, I believe. It's like $1,500.
The lights and installation?
No, that is just the lights. We got to know what we're installing before I can write a bid, so that, because nobody's going to.
That's $215 per lighted tree.
What's that?
You just quoted 7,000 for 7 trees. That's $215 per building for the lights.
No,
No,
it
it's
would be
$1,500.
No,
Huh?
it's 14 for all of the lights that we would need for. Let's see, that would be 7. All the lights that we would need to do, I believe it's 8 trees, would be $1,480.69.
Total or per piece?
No, that's total. That's enough to do 7 or 8 trees. There's one.
Well, I just said that's $215 a tree.
Right.
Yeah, you said 7,000. I think that's what.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's. I feel like the install is going to be more than the cost of the lights.
Well, the install's always more than the cost of. I mean, we pay like $12,000 to have that includes the greens. So that $12,000 cost that Carol has in here, Christmas decoration, that does include the greens, but that doesn't include any lights that they install the lights, but that's not the cost of any lights. So we pay about $11,000 a year to have the install done, but I have to know what we're having installed before I can write a bid and ask somebody to give us a price.
Well, I think if we're gonna do the tree thing, don't you think it shouldn't just be like who's interested? There should be some strategy and some placement where you're not going to have 7 or 5 in one quadrant, 2 in the next, and not.
Absolutely. That's what we tried to do with getting the Masonic, one on each end, somebody in the middle. That's where I said X amount on each quadrant. Carl, who did you have on your end?
Pretty much everybody on my block, but I think Old World Nouveau that Lisa talked to was going to do like the tall and try and wrap it around their corner. So it was like as you came into town, you would see a corner. The Office Pub was in. I was in. No one will. I can't get a response from the bank. On the other side of the street where the new flooring store is, Paramount owns that corner building and is willing to do it wrapped around the corner of that building also. So at my end, there's a lot. I mean, Zach, I don't know if we could get a hold of Madaw's or not yet to see if they want to do it on the tall part, but
Reach out to them.
And then you said at our end, Masonic, and I had told Carl I was interested.
Right.
So it seems like they'd be spaced out well enough throughout the town, and we could go in front of the village if the village hall wanted to do it.
Right. And Bill had just made the comment that, we could put one on the side of his building. You've got
The real world is, Lisa, that would be, I think the lights would be I'd be perfectly fine, and I can arrange for the whatever's required, but the lights from the gas station, it would just kill it. I don't think you'd see it.
That's true.
I think you'd be better off on the red building on the corner adjacent to Kelly, where it's quote unquote darker there.
Mm-hmm.
Or between the two buildings, we could do something. But that gas station, the lighting would kill anything that you attempt to put up there.
That's a good point.
Maybe we did it in red, or just white would be lost. That would be ridiculous. So it has to be a color of some type just to be picked up.
That's a very good point. We didn't, and I can honestly say, I don't know that Carl I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I didn't think of that either.
Yeah. So but that's a good point. I mean, it could, on the side of the building, it could be a red tree or a green tree or a red and green or.
But something that we need from you guys tonight, attached with your quote on the second page, is a picture of a swag that we are asking to purchase 2 of those. One will go at north end banner poles and one will go at the south end banner poles. If we order this now before the end of September, we get 25% off of that purchase also.
It's my understanding that those light up.
Correct.
Are you certain that we can get electricity to these things?
Kelly, I can speak to that one. I spoke with Matt today from Coalframe, and he said that, since this will be the first year that we will have these, we may have to improvise, and probably the best thing to do would be to improvise this year and to ask the Bluebird if they would be willing to allow us to run to get electricity from their building at the north end of town, and then at the south end of town to ask Connie if we could get electricity from her building for those swags. He said, after this year, it would be a good idea to speak with Rawhorn and see if there was some way to get a permanent electrical connection at the top of those poles, so we didn't have to pull it from somewhere else. Or he said we could also talk to DTE and have Rawhorn possibly pull it from the 2 poles that are, that are not very far from those banner poles. The only other thing that concerns me, and I brought this up to Carl, I don't know what the weight of those are, but as long as they're not too heavy, but to hang on the cables that are there, Carl did have a good point. The air will flow through those versus whipping around like the banners do. So,
My question on the north end one, would Kezar Library pole be closer than Bluebird?
I'm not sure, but when I spoke with Matt, obviously if they were to win the bid, he would take it to wherever was the closest point to capture the electricity. He was not aware when I talked to him, but the library is willing to participate and likes the idea of participating with the greens. And then if there's no lights on the building this year, then possibly whenever we get to the point where we could put lights in the greenery. But they are interested in participating.
Isn't it normally where that banner hangs there? It's just north of Newberry, right? But not quite to Church.
It's in between the 2.
In between the 2, yeah.
Yeah, it's. I believe the pole is on the corner before you get to that alley that's between the Bluebird and Jay's house, Jay Foltz's house.
Oh, you're talking about their venue, not their restaurant.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. We're talking about that venue, not the restaurant.
I just think the Kezar side would be the better fit for that.
Well, and like I said, Matt wasn't aware that the library was interested, so I can ask him. That might be a closer connection.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be, whoever would win the light bid, and I can go and talk to the library. They seemed very interested in participating.
But then that leaves us with our budget here. So like Lisa said, that $12,000 is essentially already accounted for with just what we normally do, wrapping the poles with the greenery and the lights.
In lieu of new banners?
Yes, I'm thinking this would come from the new banners, just these 2 over the street. The total here, did she add in the shipping and the tax with the discount in there was $4,459.95.
Then plus install.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
DPW put that up or Matt?
No, we don't have a cherry picker.
Okay.
So the last couple of times when the over the street banners went in, it was donated by the fire department.
Yes.
They used it as training. So
Yeah.
I think I'll make a motion to approve the purchase for the Skyline banners in the amount of $4,459.95. as presented?
Okay, so a separate motion would be those bows then too, right?
I don't know that we can afford those bows this year. That's where we're saying this might come in phases. I would love to afford to do the bows this year to tie it all in, but again, that's another $4,400.
No. Okay.
I mean, unless we want to do half, and we do. You know.
Okay, let me ask this then. So we're doing these over the road, coming and going out of town. We're asking Cold Frame to do the greenery install still, correct, on the light poles?
We'll have to go out for bid for that, but yeah, they're usually the only one that bids.
And are we using the snowflakes at all this year?
Yes, we have to because we haven't, well, I would say we have to. I guess that's a choice that we can make, but that's all we have.
And then we're asking the merchants to contribute per building for greenery draped on their buildings.
Correct. Greenery breathes if we can get enough to make it all.
So Lisa, I guess your bid would have to include how many buildings in town, how many wreaths. That's a big bid. Do you know, like, yardage on these buildings, what you need for these things?
I would personally, I would rather see these over the street skyline things and bows versus the lights, or just doing 4 of the tree lights and just getting, 50 bows instead of 100 bows, right? So if you can still start some continuity.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys, is there a consensus on at least the 2 loop bow instead of the 4? It's significantly cheaper just to go with 2 loops.
Well, I like the 4, but I know
it's $3,000 for 4 loops for extra. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the 2 loops are fine.
Because then I can go and ask her what the price would be for 50. I don't know if it will change now that we're not buying as many,
More, right.
But assuming it's the same price, then we go down to what, $2,100 for bows, and that might be able to be squeezed in then. If you want to give a not to exceed at this point, and then we could do that if it's a feasible thing at that price point.
So what about the trees? What about the lighted trees? What do we want to do there?
Well, I guess maybe we need to vote on Zach's motion. Did you have support, Zach?
I'll support Zach's motion on the, I believe it looks like this price quote is just simply for the banners, the 2 banners over the road. Is that
Because if we vote on that, then we might know better where our budget stands, right, for anything else?
Right.
Right, okay, so John seconded Zach. Lisa?
Yep. I just got to write it out. Okay. Hayes?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Malzahn?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So then what I did here is if we take the fall harvest decorations, the 500, and then the holiday lighting and the 2,500, that gives us $3,000. And we just took 15 out for that for the Halloween stuff. So that leaves us with 15 here.
Wait. We took out 2.
2. Okay, so that leaves us 1 plus the $5,000 underneath. So that leaves us with 6. So 6 minus the 44.59. That's what we have.
Well, hold on.
At least in this section.
Hold on, Megan. No, I thought you were right the first time. Wasn't it 500 from fall harvest decorations and then 1,500
From lighting.
holiday lighting?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's $2,000.
Right.
Right, which would leave us with 1,000.
Yeah, 1 plus the 5 underneath it, so that's 6.
Okay. Sorry, my mistake.
And so then we take the 44.59 out of that 6, and we're not.
What about this $500 for banner install and maintenance?
What about install though? I heard that wasn't included.
Yeah, so then we might,
That'll go with the holiday greens and install, right?
Yep.
That's,
But they're not putting up all the snowflakes, so it should be a moot point.
do we want the snowflakes or not?
Well, I think you want some, don't you, or no?
I think we want as many as are usable, right?
Yes.
And then we have some bows that we just fill in with the wrapped greens with the bow on top where we can put them.
Yes. And the idea is, so if we go down to 50 bows, instead of putting one on a north and south of a pole, let's just put them facing towards the street, and then you have one bow per pole where they're usable. Would that work?
Yeah.
Seems reasonable.
Assuming we can get them for $51, so that'd be 51 times 50. That would be $25.50. But then, like I said, I think we get 25% off of that, plus though the shipping and tax. So let's just call it $25.50. What it is? Where would we get that from? We have a.
What are these bows made out of?
That is a good question. I opted for, they're called, where is it? It's called Dura, or I'll read it to you.
While you're looking that up, though, we have $5,000 in the harvest days, which we didn't do.
True.
Mm-hmm.
So we could just throw that $5,000 from harvest days into Christmas.
Okay. To read it to you, they have a choice of velvet, what they call Outdura, and then Mylar. So I chose the Outdura. It sounded the best, and that it would last the best. It says our Outdura fabric provides the best UV protection. You can expect 6 to 7 years of use with this great bow. Outdura bows should be stored to extend their shelf life. So that was the one that the material that I chose. And they will be trimmed in gold, red, trimmed in gold. And then we will have the same matching bow in the over the street banner. Because it was a different bow, I asked her to throw this one in there to keep that cohesiveness in there.
And so then we have the poles wrapped with the greens. We have as many as the snowflakes that we can do. Are they still putting the trees in the alleyways?
That was extra. Remember, is that what they said, Lisa? How much did he say those trees were?
The trees are extra. It's going to depend upon the tree. I mean,
In budget.
all right, it's going to depend upon the tree and the budget. Now that tree that they did, was it 2 years ago in front of the arch? That is the tree that and Lisa donated to the village. So we did not pay for that tree, but that tree probably would have cost us $1,000, $1,200.
The other question was these lighted decorations that Carl does the trees. Lisa, did you say that was $1,500 for?
The quote that I have is $1,480.69.
Carl, what are you charging to install these?
Well, that's funny because I do have a bunch of people that will help to do it. So I already have a bunch of volunteers.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like between the price for those lights, Lisa, and then the price for the bows, we're looking at $4,000. Just from what I just did. So that $5,000 from Harvest Day could cover that, and then whatever we might need for extra install.
There's $1,000 down in the farmer's market that we also didn't do. So if you needed to earmark $1,000 for install, I think you could probably cover it.
So what do we want to do? Do you want to do a not to exceed? Do you want us to come back next month with better numbers?
You guys got to get going on this.
Yeah. So what would you like?
Well,
do you not want us to ask any of the merchants for any money? Tell us.
No, I wouldn't ask for money yet. I think that's jumping the gun. But every merchant that I talked to was totally willing to donate some part to greenery on their building. So, and the fact that they didn't have to install it made it even better for them.
Right. That was the same feeling that I got from everybody that I talked to. I had a couple who were hesitant, but then when I presented it with, are you going to decorate your building? And there was a yes, and it was, well, you will get the price, whatever the price is that we can negotiate, and then it will be installed on your building. And it was a little different. It was a little different thought process. But then again, not everybody said yes. I can't say that everybody said yes, but there was a large portion of them that did.
Well, I do have to say, I don't spend $300 on decorating the front of my building.
Right, and that's what I told everybody I talked to. I put garland on every year, and I buy $60 of the garland at Vans, and then I make my own bows and put on there. So it's less than 100 is basically what I was telling everybody would most likely be the reality.
So I guess I would like to see a motion to purchase the bows and what else were we talking about buying?
The tree lights.
The tree lights, and then wait till next month if we're going to go to the merchants for the green.
Well, Coldframe was going to give us the best price on what it would cost for the greenery so that we could actually have a price to tell them.
But we can't tell them because we don't know.
Right. So
how many
Coldframe
buildings.
And we have to get it. We have to get an exact count of who is willing to participate. Then we can tell Matt and Lisa, okay, these are the buildings that are willing to participate. We need to figure out what we need in the way of footage, and then they can get us a price, and we can go back to each business and say, this is what the price is going to be.
And they did need that ASAP because I can't remember what date they threw out at us.
It's the end of September, I'm thinking, that they have to put that order in.
Because where do they drive up to, Lisa? Do you remember what they
It
said?
was somewhere in the UP.
Yeah, it was
Somewhere in the UP, yeah.
I mean, I think $100 is reasonable. 300, I think is scary.
Right.
It's a much bigger number. So I think if we were looking, to talk to Coldframe Farm based on the merchants that you spoke to, $100 is probably per merchant reasonable.
Right.
I don't think you get everybody, but that's okay. But
So then maybe it just
with the cushion of the $6,000 in our budget, I think we could probably make up the difference. If we budgeted $100 per building, what would that come out to from Coldframe? Could they do it at $100 a building?
and then maybe we just end up with greenery this year, no wreaths. Whatever that gets us is what it gets us.
Oh, I don't think we can buy the wreaths this year.
No. I mean, the wreaths that would go along with the greenery swagged on the business. Yeah, no, we absolutely can't buy the pole wreaths this year. No.
All right, so do we have a motion out there for buying the lights and the bows?
You said it was $4,000, right, Megan? What you calculated for the bows, for 30 bows, 32 loop bows, and the lights for the 6 trees?
50 bows.
50 bows.
50 bows, and then the price that Lisa said for the lights was it's $3,990. So let's say $4,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve that expenditure.
Okay, and this is assuming we can still get $51 for the bows now that we're halving the amount.
Yes.
I'll second President Malzahn's motion.
All right, I have a question real quick. So Zach made a motion to approve the expenditure for the over the skyline lights.
Mm-hmm.
I got a second. Do we want to go back to that one?
Is it already in?
John did a second. We never took a roll.
Okay, John did a second. All right.
Yep.
I got confused.
We voted on that.
Yes, we did. We did.
Voted on it.
All right.
I know it's late, but I didn't think it was that late.
I got it. I see it.
I haven't
see
had
it.
any wine yet. Come on, let's go.
You don't have enough money to vote on it a second
You're
time.
late to the party, Kelly.
Oh, poo.
We're looking in a separate spot for this vote. We're looking at what we have for budgeted for Harvest Day, and then what we budgeted for Farmers Market is another $6,000. So
No,
that's what.
I got you, Megan. I was kidding that we were going to vote again.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So did Zach make this motion to?
I made the
Christine
motion.
made this
Zach
motion.
supported.
Okay,
Okay.
roll call.
Malzahn,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Stevens.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, that takes us on to new business. And Lisa, I didn't know what this meant. Scheduled required informational meetings.
So
Wait,
under
you I thought you had another motion on something else that you were,
No, we decided we had already taken the vote on it.
We're
okay.
good. We're good. We're good. This is just when the state amended the statute for the DDA TIF reporting, there's a requirement that we have to have 2 informational meetings. With COVID, to be honest, I wasn't thinking about it, and I was sitting here the other day and I looked up and I saw informational meeting. We need to schedule 2 informational meetings. Last year they were about 15 minutes apiece, if they were that. We scheduled them at 6:30. I was thinking we could schedule one in October and we could schedule another one in December.
We have to send out invites, Kelly, to the other municipalities that join in our TIF.
Right, yes, you have to send it. It's just like a public hearing. There has to be 15-day notice. I have to send notices to everybody that, that pays into the TIF. So it has to go to Washington Township, or Bruce Township has to be notified. Last year, we haven't had anybody from either of the townships attend any of these meetings, so.
Well, that letter has to go out by the end of this week for October's meeting.
It's 15 days, so.
Well, it's the 15th tomorrow. So you got 5 days to get it out.
Yeah, so I got to get it out. I can send it out Friday, and technically, you can email that.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be mailed. It can be an emailed invitation.
Okay. So that happens the half hour before the real meeting, then.
Right. So you'd set them for 6:30 on October the 5th, and you would set it for 6:30 on December the 7th.
Okay.
Do you want a motion to approve those schedules?
Yes, I think it would be a good idea.
October 5th and December, I'm sorry, what was that? The
7th.
December 7th.
I'll make the motion to approve those 2 informational meetings.
Support it, Poznansky.
Thank you. Malzahn?
Yes.
Poznansky?
Yes.
Parker?
Yeah.
Brandt?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Website. I think we definitely need to look into getting a new one. I don't know. It could be a basic. Would we have a subcommittee form looking into different?
Could we maybe just send out an RFP and get some, because it doesn't, based on what we're looking at, I don't know if it's something for this year. I don't know. We're spending a lot of money right now.
Right.
But at least we know what it's going to cost us going into next year, and then we'll be prepared. Because I mean, it could be, I don't know if we're looking at $1,000. It's pretty cheap to do a website these days. It's not going to cost you a ton like it used to. And I'm sure you could find, maybe could you pass it off to the high school as a project? Is there anybody in there that you think would take that on? I don't know. Maybe we could get it for nothing. But I think we need to at least start out with getting some quotes through.
Who does the villages?
Catherine maintains ours. She had a company out of Florida do the base of it. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name. And then we have IT, SYO, that helps also the security of it, the firewall and protection. So it's a multi-level. But ours has, the villages, has payment portals and more information that needs security of that firewall. I don't know that the DDAs would require that, but I say we just, direct Lisa to either prepare an RFP and then bring it to us for consideration. Hopefully by then next month, Carol can adjust the budget for what expenditures we've already got and then be there to really take an examination of what do we have left.
I agree. And I agree that it's probably something next year that we're going to be looking at, especially with the road project too, if that's to come up.
Mhm.
Okay, so Lisa, if you
Yes.
put together an RFP for us, and I have a couple companies that I can refer you to or get us in contact with too.
Okay.
Does any board members have any comments?
I do.
I just
Go
go
ahead, Carol.
I just have one thing. I know that we all got slowed down with COVID, but where do we stand on that tree that's supposed to go in the alleyway?
Carol and I,
Is that still on
Carol
our
and I-
list?
well, Carol and I were just talking about that the other day. I was going to reach out to Ron White and see what kind of pricing he could get us for the tree, and a couple of other just local contractors, local landscapers, and see what kind of price they could get us on the tree, and then planting the tree and when they would be available to do it. And I was going to contact you and see if we could coordinate that.
Okay, I just didn't want it to fall off the list.
Right.
And then when we can, I'll gather, do some sort of a, I don't know what you would say, not a ribbon cutting, but a memorial or dedication maybe. But
Dedication, yeah, that's
What, okay, I don't know what this is for. What do you guys?
Oh, it's for Ted.
Okay. And where are you planning it?
in the alley by Ted and Mary's building there, the Keller Williams building. Yep.
Anybody else have any comments?
I did have one over Peach Fest holiday. I stopped in down at My Junktiques and was chatting with the owner a little bit. She said, should there ever be an opening, she would be very interested in jumping on the board. That I think she said, because she has another branch over in Richmond, that she's been on their DDA board or some sort of board over there. So she would be interested. And I said, I don't think we have one right now, but I will throw it out there. So it's on the radar if it ever.
Encourage her just to drop me a letter, send me an email, a letter of interest. And I'm not looking for a blood type in her children's names, just, who she is and why, she would want to serve, and send it off to me. I have a file folder of people who are interested in positions, so I'm happy to keep that.
Okay, can do that.
For sure.
Kelly, are you guys still, is the Art and Wine Walk still happening?
No.
Okay.
Only because I'd have to start it at 9 o'clock in the morning to kick 10 people off at a time.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. I didn't hear anything. I was just kind of curious. That's too bad.
I know.
But what is still happening is Community Shred Day. We've partnered with Bruce Township. So the second of our two is September 26th. So anybody, any business or, resident in Bruce Township or the Village of Romeo is welcome to participate, and bring your bankers boxes, and the truck will be at the Bruce Township Hall from 9 to noon. So bring your paper and you can have it shredded right on site. So
September 26th?
yes. Mm-hmm.
My God, tomorrow, and a shout out to Carl for always coming over the top for me. When I step in his store, he comes through.
Well, you're welcome. Anytime.
Lisa, I know you'll never get hold of Sherry, but I will commit her building.
Okay.
There are 5 businesses on in my St. Clair Street building that would be interested in participating.
All right.
Actually, I'll guarantee they'll participate.
Okay. Well, As You Like It Salon did respond with a yes.
Getting hold of the other people isn't going to happen, but there's the one vacant. Obviously, I can take care of that, and I'll commit for the other people.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So the other thing that I should mention, in part of that conversation that I had with Clara, unfortunately, they are not doing a Santa parade. It was questionable whether or not she thinks how she can handle the crowd in the village park. I said, Clara, we must have a tree lighting ceremony. She was worried about, where is Santa going to go and how will they facilitate that? I said, look, I think there's enough businesses that we could, figure out how to line the kids up 6 foot apart around and down the block and have them come in and out, of Santa in a rocking chair, either in Masonic Temple or, Starkweather or someplace that we could, secure a location to still do some sort of tree lighting community Christmas event. So I'm encouraging her to still do something, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to at least have a parade.
Maybe we could tie the lightings of the buildings in with your lightings of the tree if we get them up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't
Do it all the
imagine
same
a
night.
Christmas celebration without roasted chestnuts in the park, even though I don't really like them, but people seem to. So I don't know. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second President Malzahn's motion.
Malzahn,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Znansky,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yep.
Parker,
Yeah.
Stevens.
Yes. No, I want to stay longer.
Okay.
You can stay here.
All right, everybody, have a great night and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yep. Good luck here,
Megan,
Audie.
I will
Bye.